All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are up in this piece. We are here. It's going to send out that notification to let you know we're here. My description is limited. This cell phone that I use is not friendly to my fat fingers. So as much as I try to type more, and it just drags on, and of course autocorrect doesn't help at all because you want to type something else and it wants you to type this, that, and the other. So negative emotions, and we'll engage our topic from that place. I posted and I'm not suggesting you have to download it. Just kind of take a look at it. We'll make references to it. It's really just something so we can have something to look at, because it lists all of these feeling categories and kind of the emotions that can be said to be connected, or I'm not exactly sure how they intended. The top, I believe, is actually the emotion, and then the feelings. I'm not sure. It wasn't an explanation, but we'll work from there. So I'll give it another minute here, and then we'll kick off. I got my little write-up so I can kind of make reference to all the questions that we pose. Hope you're having a good week. Obviously, if you live here in the South, in this area, we had a little snow early in the week on Sunday into Monday. So we had a little snowfall for those who do live in the area. Hope you maintain safety and wisdom. For those in other parts of the United States and the world, we actually I have people on my page who live around the world. Hope all is well, and I'm saying that I know in light of what we're dealing with, what we're up against, that may seem to be something strange to say, but the fact is, not everybody is suffering, and for those who are, not everybody's suffering in the same way. Some don't see the trials the same way, etc. So I never want to just assume everybody's under the gun and going through pains and agonies and frustrations. There are some actually thriving and doing quite well despite everything going on. So, and we don't express any haterade or whatever people call that stuff to them. That being said, let's dig in, and you'll see my eyes kind of drift to what is my left, your right. And just because I want to kind of make sure I touch these questions. And this is very conversational form. I love when people talk back to me. I can see your comments, unless they come fast and furious, and I may not be able to respond. But I'm more than willing to respond. Now, stay on topic, of course. I may give an example that may kind of rub up against you. We're all grown people here, so hopefully we can operate with some maturity. All right, that's it. So we talked about emotions last week, and it's very important. If you didn't catch last week's broadcast, it's right here on my page, so please go back and check that out. We download them every week, and we upload them to the YouTube channel. If you need the link to that because you'd rather watch it there, just let me know. I can copy that link into a message, DM to you. I can DM that link to you. You can also scroll down. You'll eventually find it. But it's on my business page, my ministry page, YouTube page. So we've been uploading them every week. We are current. We have the emotions. The first one in this kind of series is already uploaded. And so this tonight is to in some sense get into individual, quote, emotions or feelings. But you'll find, much like last week, we're not going to really talk about individual things, sadness per se or fear per se, but we are going to have a conversation tonight, and emotions are going to be kind of the instrument or the thing we're using as our means of focus. Emotions are things. They are things. We can be emotional, which is a state of being. But emotions in and of themselves are things. Sadness is a thing. It's a state, if you will. a state of being sad, a state of being angry, or whatever the case may be. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we understand what we talked about last week, is that emotions in the general sense are built in. They're built into our DNA. They're built into our person. They are necessary to our lives. There are actual, they don't refer to them as anti-emotions, but there are conversations. Again, my background is in psychology, but anyway, there is a such thing as actually being really anti-emotion. Numb, there it is. I was trying to reach for the word. Numb, a sense of numbness. And really numbness, much like when you don't have any feeling in your hands or in a certain appendage, that kind of thing. Well, that emotional numbness is where you don't have a proper response. Emotional, you don't have any response. Actually, it's not even proper. You have no response. You're numb. Now, some consider that to be an emotion. I actually consider that to be an anti-emotion or a non-emotion. So we're not going to talk about that tonight. We may cover that by itself because I think that's worth a whole broadcast. How do you handle and deal with and how do you recognize when you have emotional numbness or an anti-emotion? You have no emotional reaction at all. We will eventually do a broadcast on, just to kind of give you some heads up, about when you're worried that you're seeing in yourself or others, like your children, for example, wrong emotional reactions. Is there such thing? Is there such thing? And that's very important. We talked about that a little bit last week, because what we know is that we judge each other's, as we talked about last week, we judge each other's responses, what we call emotional responses, right? So we're very critical, and I'm going to be careful, not everybody, but we have to engage in our communities. There's that word again. And part of our assessment in our communities is, are people responding to us? Is their emotional expression what we consider to be proper? And then we're going to have to engage that at some point. I'm not saying it's going to be next week, but we will have to discuss that. Because what if the issue lies in our interpretation? And I hit that a little bit last week. What if the issue is our interpretation of what we think the proper emotion should be? For example, just real quick, and then we'll get into tonight's topic. Let's say you have 3 children, 4 children, whatever the case. You have multiple children. And so your firstborn, because that child spent more time with adults, such as like my brother, he spent more time with adults, seems to be able to interact with adults and show what some might call maturity. So they don't show a lot of crying and temper tantrums and flailing on the ground, and they try to reason more. But the younger children may, particularly as you get a little younger, you get to the youngest child, not trying to be disrespectful, but it's called birth order. The younger children will tend to be more expressive. Is that a nice way to say that? More expressive, because they're engaging not just their parents, they're engaging their siblings. As a matter of fact, typically once you get out to like 3, 4, 5 children, your younger children are almost never engaging their parents. You know why? Because you say, go talk to your brother. Hey, go help your little brother or your little sister with their homework. Go over there and give them that lunch. Go over there. So they end up, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. This is not about parenting. This is about emotion. So what ends up happening is the younger siblings will typically not develop as quickly emotionally in terms of those emotional expressions that you want to see in terms of maturity, because they're engaging kids. They're engaging their siblings. Now, some have children who are of very real, vast ages in between. That's a different dynamic, because their siblings are almost adults when they're born, or at least teenage. And then by the time they start getting some independence, their siblings are grown. And their grown siblings will handle them almost like that's their child. But I mean, like my brother and sister and I, we have roughly 3 years between us, ultimately, and I'm the middle child. So my sister spent more time with her brothers, and of course we are all close, right? Why? Not that she's not close to my parents, but she spent a lot of time with us. That's how it goes. So they tend to take on that. That's a whole nother broadcast. We're not doing that tonight. Tonight I want to discuss the notion or the idea of negative emotion. Now again, I posted this meme picture, whatever you want to call it, list of emotions: sad, happy, hurt, confident, energized, panic, anger, tired, strong, helped. I didn't create this, by the way. And then under sadness, depressed, desperate, dejected, heavy, crushed. So let me ask this question. Let's get some dialogue here. Do you believe there's a such thing as negative? Now, you got this list to refer to, so we all can have the same thing. Do you believe there is a such thing as negative emotion? But before you answer, before you start typing yes, no, qualify that. In other words, give your explanation. Type it right in there while I'm talking. Take a stab at it. Let's talk about it. Is there a such thing as negative emotions? Now, I was raised in an environment where I was taught that there is a such thing as negative emotion. Not going to get into that just yet. I was taught that there's a such thing as negative emotion in some sense. And then the justifications typically, watch this, for me, had something to do with expression. Not so much that the emotion itself was negative, but that my expression may not have been timely, may not have been respectful. You see where I'm going with this? So let me ask the question again, and I really want you to think about it. And even if you're watching this later, or you're watching this on YouTube, I want you to comment. I want you to think about it and comment. Is there a such thing, and I'm not saying that there is a absolute right answer to this, as negative emotions themselves? And I'm not talking about expression. Let me be clear. Is there a such thing as negative feelings or negative emotions? And if you say yes, in particular, what's your qualification or justification? Why do you say that? Because you were simply told that? That's what I just said. I was taught that there is a such thing, but I also gave you more precisely what I came to understand. It was really about the expression of those emotions, which is why I don't want to tell you what those emotions are, because I don't want to poison the well, as they say. I don't want to kind of lead you down where you think I want you to go. So take another minute here, and somebody throw me out something. Yes, no. Do you think there's a such thing as negative emotion? Now, I understand that as you're thinking about this, you're thinking about you. You're thinking about how you raised your children. You're thinking about how you interact with your grandchildren. You're thinking about your coworkers. You're thinking about your community. You can't help but, if you think to answer the question, even if you don't answer it by typing an answer, you can't help but to wonder to yourself, do I believe in a such thing as negative emotion? Now you have that list there, list of emotions. Is there a such thing as negative emotion? Is anything on there? Is sadness negative? Is happy negative? Is hurting or hurt negative? Is confident negative? Is energized negative? Is panicky negative? The feeling of panic or the emotion of being panicked. Anger, tired as an emotion, not as just simply physical tiredness, but a tired. I'm so tired of this. I feel tired. That kind of thing. And as a matter of fact, under tired, indifference, though I don't think it fits there. Indifference is what I talked about, the numbness. We'll talk about that another time. But notice they're bored, drained, exhausted, which can also be physical. They tend to kind of run together, where you have physical exhaustion and you have an emotional exhaustion together. Now, not always, but sometimes. Dull, weary, powerless, dejected, listless, burnt out, fatigued. Now those words sound, because of where I come from, how I was raised, those words sound pretty negative. But I might be able to explain at least some of them in a very positive light. So just giving another moment here, just talking as I'm talking, if you feel up to answering, that's fine. Again, and for those who are watching this back, put your answer out there. Do you believe there's a such thing as negative emotions? If I say positive, oh yes, Gabe, But what about negative emotion? Is there a such thing? And I'm definitely talking to those who are parents, those who are grandparents, because you clearly were not only raised, but you raised your children. You responded to their emotional expression. You may have even commented on how they responded or what they did as an expression of their emotion. We have somebody here, Ms. Jones. No negative emotion. I think all emotions are trying to tell you something. Okay, that's interesting. Very interesting. I like that. Trying to tell you something. And I would, matter of fact, want to just take that and go a little further, if you don't mind. Emotions are very similar to your nerve system. How do you know that something's not right in your stomach? You get a pain, what you consider to be a pain. Well, the pain is actually just a reaction to maybe a virus. The pain is a good thing. I know it don't feel like it, but pain is actually very important. I saw a documentary, just as an example, years ago, of a little girl, probably grown now, who didn't, her nerve endings or whatever the case was she wasn't born with them or something. So she literally could not feel pain. She could not feel pain. So she hurt herself a lot, banging into things, because she didn't have a pain center. Or pain center, excuse me. Her nerve endings or whatever, I believe it was her nerves. It's many, many years ago, before my son was born. So it was a good long time ago. She could not feel pain. So if she bumped into something, she didn't know. If I bump into something, I bruise, I feel a poke or something. She could not feel it, and she hurt herself quite a bit. Quite a bit. So understand, much like the physical nerve endings, our emotions, as Ms. Jones is stating, I'm not going to try your first name, Ms. Jones is stating, is extremely important. We need those emotions because they are indicators. They indicate, they let us know something has happened. Let me go back to the tired. I don't know if anybody has it open. It's right there on my page. Click it open in the announcement. You'll be able to see this list I'm reading. Under tired, it says, I'll skip indifferent, bored. Well, I don't know. Bored is a feeling. I think bored is something else. Anyway, drained, exhausted, kind of the same thing. Dull, weary, powerless, dejected, listless, burnt out, fatigued. I would suggest, I told you, I can make a case. I would suggest that as negative as that sounds, that's actually neither negative or positive. I think, as was stated, that's an indication. If I'm feeling drained or exhausted, same thing, there's a reason why I'm feeling that. And that's something I need to stop and pay attention to. Let me say this. Let me get in trouble because I haven't gotten in trouble yet. For everybody who talks about their self-worth, I know my value, right? If you say that and you are not keen on your emotional disposition, in other words, who you are emotionally, I don't think you know your value. How can you? First of all, the word value when it comes to humanity makes no sense because what are you worth, $1 billion, $1 trillion? But let me not be facetious, okay? Again, I don't think you can truly say you know your worth or your value and not know this piece. Okay, why are you doing this series of broadcasts? Because I think most of us are not actually in tuned to our emotional selves. We know I'm feeling something at a particular moment, but I don't know how many of us really know the excuse the term, the structure or the framework of our emotional selves. I have, over the last 3 or 4 years, taken some real time to do some inventory over who I am emotionally. Why? One, because I have a son and I model for him I want to model for him who he is and who he's becoming. I want him to know that he will feel sadness. He will feel happiness, glad, pleased, charmed, grateful. He will feel the range of it. He will have times when he's energized, he's inspired, he's determined, especially if he's my son. He has a time of being determined. Well, I'm pretty clear on what motivates me, what drives, let me not use that word, what stimulates me emotionally. I'm pretty clear on it. Wish I would have known this stuff in the time of being married, because I would have been able to articulate to my wife at the time, whoever I was married to, you know what, right now, what's going on, or what's going on with me is I am really drained emotionally. No, I feel fine, like I'm not ready to go to sleep, but I feel drained. I'm emotionally drained. I don't have anything to give right now, sweetie. I don't have anything to give, love. I don't really have anything. So let me say it again. If you say, I know my value, I know my worth, and you don't know your emotional complexities, you don't know all the elements of who you are emotionally, and if you say, Gabe, we all experience the range of emotion, I would venture to say yes, but to a degree. I think there are some who, unfortunately, based on their nurture, based on their nurturing, how they were raised. I know I'm hitting that parental thing a lot, but stay with me. Based on how they were raised in an angry environment. There are some of us who were raised in sad environments. There are some of us who were raised in different environments. So we have to understand that there's one that says help. Not really sure if that's an emotion, but anyway, you see there are those who are raised in very inspirational environments. My dear brother Nathan, he's very, now I don't know how he was raised. I'm not going there, but he's very inspirational in his disposition. My pastor, Pastor Daryl Miller, he's very inspirational. He's very determined. He's very vibrant in his emotional expression. I've seen him when there's tough, him and I have had very tough conversations, and whether it was between us or talking about something else. And I noticed he stays he's reflective, but he's still very upbeat. He's still very inspiring. Now, for those who may have been cheerleaders, I'm not, I'm not being disrespectful, but I call it the cheerleader. I call it the cheer. I am focused. I am motivated. But I am not very cheery. That's not me. That's not me. I'm not very cheery. I'm just not, that's just not me. That's just not my expression, excuse me. But I am emotionally creative and inspired and determined and all of that. But my expression, and I hope you see the difference I'm making. I did this last week. So there's the emotion, and then there is the expression, and then eventually we're going to do a broadcast about what happens when those two things don't line up. And that's a very serious discussion we need to have. But tonight, I really want to talk about the idea of identifying. Now, one person gave their answer. For those who just joining us, let me give the question again and give you a chance to answer. Do you believe, and this may come from how you were raised, do you believe there is a such thing as negative emotions? Not negative expression of emotion, negative emotions themselves. And again, if you're wondering, like, emotions, I put that list of emotions up. So please feel free to click on it, read through it. It'll give you kind of an idea of what I'm looking at. That's a pretty nice sized list. I don't think some of those things are emotion. I think some of those things are more expression. But that's just neither here or there. We won't squabble over that tonight. So again, let me pose a question for those who just joined us. Do you think there's a such thing as negative emotion? Ms. Jones, you can see her comment she says no, but somebody may disagree. Somebody may have a difference of opinion. Do you think there's a such thing as negative emotion? And if you say yes, you think there is, I'm asking for you to give a qualification, a justification, an explanation as to why you think there, even identify some of those things that you consider to be negative. Sorry about that. Got my laptop up. Why you think them to be negative. And the reason why this is important, by the way, and didn't turn off my ringer, notifications here. The reason why it's important is because what I want you to understand is that you and I have grown up in communities and in a society where our expression of emotion was responded to. You see how important that is? And yes, that word environment. Let me steal that word. Community, environment. We all grew up in environments. Not only our behaviors, but our emotional expressions in particular. Some of us grew up in environments where the reason why we didn't express anger was not a personality thing. And let me correct some of us. So, well, Gabe, I just don't really express. See, I'm just different. I'm just different. I'm just different. Okay, watch this. If you have children, if you have nieces and nephews, what do you notice with babies? All babies cry at some point. Now, some cry more than others. True, you're right. But all babies cry. As a matter of fact, if your baby doesn't cry, by some point, you actually are supposed to take them to the doctor. Believe it or not, if your baby does not cry, you're actually supposed to take the child to the doctor. Now, for those mothers who just had the child and you tired, you're like, ooh, I'm so glad that baby never cries. But there is a point, and I've talked to mothers about this, where you get concerned if your baby does not express hunger, crying, being feisty or angry, tears. Catch what I'm saying? When a child is uneasy and an infant is uneasy, it doesn't matter if my personality is, I don't really speak out when I get it. I'm not talking about your expression. I'm talking about the fact that from the time we're born, crying so happens to be one of those things that we do, not just because we're hungry, not just because the diaper is full, but we also actually cry as one of our first emotional expressions. Wow. And believe it or not, your child, particularly mothers, but let's just work with it, our children watch us. They watch our emotional expressions. The first time I remember seeing my father cry, he may have cried before then, was at my grandfather's funeral. My grandfather died, I was in my 20s. That was the first time I flat out saw my father shed tears. Now, that's not evil or good or nothing. It's whatever emotion he was experiencing. And that was my mom's dad. That was the one he was closest to. And I saw a tear roll down his face. And I was moved by that, not just because of the circumstance, but I was moved by that because it was the first time I saw my father well up with tears. He is not a person with major emotional expression. Now, if you've been watching my videos, I am. So clearly I didn't get that from him. I got that from my mother. My brother is more along the lines of my father in that he has very reserved expression. He does have times when he'll express certain emotion, but oftentimes he's very reserved in his expression. So I'm far more expressive than both my siblings. In fact, I'm more expressive than anybody in my family, truth be told. So in terms of my emotion, whatever's going on with me. So now let's look at emotion as an indication of something going on, as was stated earlier. Very well stated. So if we don't look at emotions as negative or positive, but look at emotions much like our nerves endings firing, right? So if I put my hand over a hot stove, believe it or not, that heat shoots up into my brain and causes a reaction. Now that should sound familiar, because what did we say when we read the definition of emotion? That is a brain reaction. Our emotions are actually whatever stimulates those emotions, good or bad, negative or positive, is actually happening in our brain. Which is why we can have a disconnect. I know this seems a little technical, but this is why we can have somewhat of a disconnect in terms of our choice response. No, Gabe, I can't help myself. I can't help myself. I don't mean to just start cussing people out. You weren't born cussing people out. You didn't even have the terminology. Where did you get the terminology from? You had to get the terminology from your environment. Thank you for that word, brother. I'm going to work that word to death. Gabe, seems like once again, you're spending more time with making a difference, not in emotions as negative or positive, but potentially our environments. Wow. Wow. What if the real negative or positive is not the emotional expression, but the expression expressed or the emotion expressed in a negative or positive environment? What if expressing anger in an environment where anger is given opportunity is a good thing? Wow. Wow. So the child who cries because they are angry that they don't get the bottle, a temper tantrum, but the mother or father who engages the child and says, now look, you're not going to get this bottle because you've already had 2 bottles. The parent doesn't knock down the child's expression of anger or frustration behind wanting another bottle. The parent speaks to the child and articulates to the child. That is an environment where that child will likely come back to that parent if the parent keeps doing that, and will be able to say, Mom, I don't like that you didn't let me go to the party. And if the mom maintains that, and if the dad maintains a reaction to that emotion, that child will be able to articulate to that parent their frustration, their anger. Gabe, you are all in my life. That's what I meant to do. I meant to do this. I meant to get into our lives, to dig into our histories and recognize that just maybe the reason why you don't express your anger, you don't express your frustration, which is often classified as negative, is because you were nurtured in an environment where you were not allowed to express those emotions, where you were not given opportunity to learn how to properly express what is very potentially healthy emotion. Son, what's wrong with you? Today I'm sad. What are you sad about, son? Well, I'm sad because in our world today, Daddy, I don't think people love each other. Well, boy, get over it. Get over it. Act like a man. Get over there and sit down. Y'all tracking with me? And I can only speak as a boy who became a man. I didn't grow up in that environment, but understand, I know many men who did, who were told that they don't have a right to be angry, they don't have a right to be frustrated. Get over it. Grow up. Grow up. Grow up. And grow up was a phrase being connected to stop expressing that emotion. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see no more tears. Get out of my face. You ain't got time to be immature. Get over yourself. The world is hard. Shut up and go on about your business. And the issue was not the emotion, but how the emotion was responded to. Oh, we're going to get in this thing. I still got some time tonight. I don't think that there's necessarily negative emotion. But what I really believe is that there is a potential nurturing or lack thereof of those emotions in our childhoods. And of course, if we're raising children or we have grown children, you might even see it. And if you're not careful, let me talk about this because I'm somebody's grown child. If you don't grow up in terms of allowing that grown son or daughter to be able to articulate or to demonstrate their emotion, now you may have to fix some stuff. You may have to say, you know what, son or daughter, come here, let's have a real good conversation. I did not always allow you. Now I understand why you won't come to me. Now I understand why you won't talk to me. Now I know why you won't tell me when you're hurting, when you're frustrated, because I shot you down. I was not allowed to express my emotion, so I didn't allow you to express yours. I didn't allow you to do that. I didn't allow you to get angry and sometimes raise your voice. I didn't allow you to hit the table because you were upset. But son, I hit the table. Daughter, I occasionally get loud because I got to get it out. So now I understand. Son, daughter, grandson, granddaughter, niece, nephew, I understand. Co-worker, you probably came out of an environment where you weren't allowed to properly express emotions that were categorized as negative. Think about that, Brother Nate. You said your neighbor was like that. I know people in my own, I'm not going to say names because I got people on my page. That's my family. I got plenty of cousins who were not allowed to express the emotion, which is why they clung to my parents. I ain't nobody dumb. I know why they clung to my parents. My own cousins call my mom and dad, not auntie and uncle. They call my mom and dad. And I love my aunts and uncles to death. Please hear me. Please hear me. But many times my cousins consider my parents like their parents because with my parents, with their aunt and uncle, they were allowed to express some stuff that they were not allowed to express with their mothers and their fathers. I'm just being real with us. See, I'm picking on emotions, but let's be real. I'm not really talking about emotions. I wasn't talking about it last week. I'm not really talking about it this week. I'm not going to talk about it next week or the week after. I don't think anger is a problem, except for the fact anger is a problem and all of that other stuff, agitated and all of that, because that person who has a problem with showing anger, that's the problem. I don't think anger is a problem. What I really believe is the problem is that person was taught. Imagine being 80 and 90 years old and was never taught. I have a friend right now whose father is 91. He's bitter. He's mean, he's demeaning, he's disrespectful, and apparently he's been that way all of their life, and they're 62. Wow. 62 years of this person's life, all they've known of their father is bitterness and anger and a constant expression of frustration. Nobody's good enough. Nobody can measure up. So I said to them, and of course they didn't see this coming. I said, do you know anything about his upbringing? Silence. Of course, they never thought about it. They never imagined that my parents were raised by somebody. I was raised by my parents. My parents were raised by somebody whose parents were raised by somebody. My mother comes out of a very angry home. So yes, we caught some of that. I love my mother dearly, but we caught some of that. So I had a hard time with managing my anger. And well into my adult life, like I just got a handle on that 4 years ago. I'll be 47. You understand what I'm saying? Because one, did I have a right to be angry? Well, I didn't know what I'm telling y'all now, that anger was a natural response. I didn't realize that anger or sadness or frustration or being grateful or whatever the case may be is a natural response. I didn't know that being anxious or being uncomfortable is a natural response. I didn't know that even a sense of bitterness was natural. I didn't know that being weary of people or being fatigued emotionally because I have been expressing emotions and I'm fatigued. I didn't know. I'm not excusing what I did in expression. I'm not excusing it. I'm not excusing it in any way. I'm not excusing it. But I'm just being transparent, and I want you to be transparent with yourself. You ain't got to type nothing in here. I want you to get off this broadcast in a few minutes, and I want you to really be transparent with yourself. First of all, did I grow up in a healthy emotional expression home? Did I? No. Yes. Maybe. Be honest. I don't know. I wasn't there. Unless you're my brother or sister or my cousins, I wasn't there. But you were. Maybe you are numb to it. Maybe you've become indifferent to it. Maybe you've tried to turn it off in your mind. And anytime an emotion spills out, you try to push it down, push it down, push. No, I'm not allowed to express emotion. Let me just say this, because I need to free somebody right now. I just feel like I need to do this. Emotional expression is not immaturity. Stop thinking it. Stop saying it. Stop teaching it. Stop saying it to yourself. Don't say it to your children, your grandchildren, your coworkers. Emotional expression is not a matter of immaturity. Emotional expression is not a matter of immaturity. The immature part is in how it is expressed. In other words, maturity says I am conscious not just of myself, but of the community or where I am. I'm cognizant. I'm aware. But emotional expression in its general sense is not evil. Emotional expression in its general sense is not immaturity. Having emotions and expressing them is actually healthy and necessary. And maybe we just need to talk about how to rework our expression, because the expression is a choice. Woo! Uh-oh. You mean to tell me I don't have to cuss people out? No. You mean to tell me I don't have to punch walls or others? No. You mean to tell me I don't have to drink or smoke or shop when I'm having an emotional episode? I don't have to go and do shopping therapy, spending money I can't afford? No. You mean to tell me, Gabe, I don't have to do all kind of detrimental things to myself and others? I don't have to cut myself. I don't have to cuss myself out. I don't have to down myself. I don't have to do any of those things? No. You're absolutely right, brother. Absolutely right. Fear. We talked about this in our Bible study at Journey Church last night. These things are natural. These things are actually not only natural, but they are necessary. And I just want to come as little old Gabe and maybe speak. And if you believe anything I've ever said, please believe this. And you may be saying, well, Gabe, who gave you the right? Well, this is my page. I gave me the right to tell you get free. Don't go through 2021 holding on to these emotions that need to get expressed. I've been offering this. I'll offer it again. Hey, contact me. Maybe we need to have a conversation. Listen to me. Listen to me. I was on the phone with a friend for 9 hours. Now, I don't do that. I don't do that a lot. I don't do that a lot. Trust me, that was once, and that's the first time I've ever done it. I was exhausted physically, but that same person was going through some extreme issues, including divorce, extreme issues. And everything I see, we haven't talked a whole lot. Well, we have talked. Matter of fact, my bad. But everything I've seen of them since, they are doing well. And I'm not saying it's because of our conversation, but they needed to get some stuff off their chest. Woo, a lot. Some of the stuff we had to repeat. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A defense mechanism for sure. And what happens is, so now I won't go into this because we'll talk about this at a later time. I'm going to get us off here. But I want you to start thinking about what Ms. Jones says, a defense mechanism. So watch this, trip on this. What happens if we start using one emotion to cover another one? What if we're really feeling sadness, but we're not allowed to experience sadness, so then we express sadness and anger? Men, did you hear me? Let me do that one for us men. Let me do that for the men. Let me do that for the men one more time. So as men, when we get emotionally exhausted, when we get emotionally dejected, when we start feeling emotional fatigue, when we can't answer anymore, even our own issues, when we get sad, we feel like failures. I think that's on that list. When we start feeling like failures, you know what we do? We get angry. You know why? Why we do that? Because anger feels powerful. Come on, man. Come on. Do I got any men who will talk to me? Anger feels powerful. Anger is one of those emotions that has a power element to it. And I know women, I know y'all may be in the same boat, but I just want to help us men out for a second. For those of you who got sons, catch me on this. Catch me. Now I was considered to be soft. I was small. I was skinny. So what I did was, and I'm going to tell you where the anger really began. I was picked on. I was left out. I was blackballed, blah, blah, blah. So what I did was I would pout. I would show sadness. And then when didn't work, I would manipulate. And then when that didn't work, because I was getting too big for that, then I went to anger. As I got older and I got bigger, I went to anger. Even if I was in charge and it was up to me what happened, I still went to anger. Why did I flip that switch to anger? I wasn't even feeling angry, but I went to anger. Let me see if this sounds right to you. Passive aggressive. Most people, they use that, but they don't even know what that actually is. Look that up. I'm going to give it to you in a real short form here because my time is running out. Passive aggressive is basically two different states of being or thinking happening at the same time. And typically it is favored, watch this, by the person who's passive. Not exclusively, but oftentimes the person who's passive and has been mistreated or feel ran over or whatever, that aggressive piece is a defense mechanism. So they seem to be naturally passive. But if they feel threatened, they become aggressive. So they start expressing anger. They upset. They get livid. They're furious, raging. So this is where you get this passive aggressive. Exactly. That's another way to say it. Nice, nasty. Exactly. So you get this person who will be apologizing and cussing you out at the same time. Apologizing and cussing you out. Literally just boom, 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 boom. Furious. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be like this. I don't mean to do all this. I'm just so tired. Ding, 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 ding. I'm just so frustrated. Ding, 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 ding. That's the actual emotion. That's actually what they're feeling. They're actually frustrated. They're actually tired. They're emotionally tired, but it's coming out like this. And then they're also apologizing. I'm sorry. I don't know what's doing this. I don't know what's causing this. I'm just so burnt out. That's the actual emotion. Now, if you live with somebody like that, watch this. You ready? When you hear them express what the emotion is, they may not even catch that they say it. Stop right there. Stop responding to the expression and go right for the word that they spoke to you. Go right for what they're saying. As a matter of fact, if they don't seem to be saying it, ask them, what emotion are you feeling? Are you feeling, you're expressing anger, or at least what I understand to be anger, but are you feeling anything else? Are you feeling anything else right now? Are you frustrated? Are you feeling burnt out? Are you sad? In other words, care. Care enough to ask them. Don't just say that's negative, stop doing that, I can't handle that, and run away. What kind of part are you playing in your community? Yeah, but Gabe, nobody does that for me. Let me see what emotion that is. right? That phrase right there, but Gabe, nobody does that for me, is an expression of emotion. Believe it or not, that's an expression of emotion. You are feeling, dejected. You're feeling powerless. Now, let's see here. Uncomfortable for sure. You definitely got a sense of desperation. You might be disgusted. Oh man, there's a lot of them on this chart. So when you say things like that, fearful, you may be afraid that if you speak up and express your actual emotion that's driving your expression, that the person may not respond properly. Let me go back to something I said, and I got to get off here. For those who say, I know my self-worth, I know my self-value. Now, if you've heard any of my broadcasts, you know me, I don't track with that statement, but we're not going to talk about that specifically tonight. If you say you know your self-value or your self-worth, but you have not done your homework about your emotional makeup, you can't legitimately say you know your value, you know your worth, if you don't have your emotions in check, at least to know what they are. What I have learned through years, and I hate to use the word because it makes people uncomfortable, of counsel, in talking to people, I notice when they start talking about their value, when they start talking about their worth, I notice they get tense. When they start talking about their value and talking about their worth, they don't just get tense or intense, that you can even see some frustration, you can even see some anger. You know what that tells me? That for all of their assessment of their worth, whatever that means, which is why I don't like the statement, because you can't really qualify that. You can't quantify that. Nobody knows what that even means. What does that actually mean? Oh, I know what I value to myself. Okay. Well, based on what? Right? So based on what? So let me give you something to start thinking about when you start talking about I know my value. Because most people, if you say your education, well, it ain't all about education. Okay, about your looks. It ain't all about looks. Okay, then what is it? Your job? It ain't all about your job. So then how do you value yourself? Well, at least let me give you something to at least try to help you. Who are you emotionally? Now, another piece would be, who are you morally? Who are you in terms of your character? But let me give you this one because this is what I'm talking about. Who are you emotionally? Get honest with yourself. Do you genuinely experience frustration? If you do, what drives your frustration? What motivates you to be frustrated? If you have a tendency to be angry or upset or mad, what drives you? Until you know, why are you expecting? Here's why it's so serious. You are expecting your husband, your wife, your children, your grandchildren, your boss, your coworkers, your neighbors to respect your emotional expression, and you haven't even did the work to figure out what your emotions are and why they are what they are. Why do you get mad if a perfect stranger calls you out your name? Why does that upset you? Why does it upset you if your grown children don't call you every 5 seconds? Why does that upset you? Well, you didn't call me. Well, they're grown. They do whatever they want to do. No, they better call me. What? Can anybody do that to you? Can anybody say you better call them? Can anybody do that to you? So understand that's an emotion that you are expressing if your child forgets to call you. Now, if that's your rule, do your thing. But understand, I'm using it as an example to make a point about something. If you get all hot and bothered because your grown child didn't call you, and you can't stop for a moment, catch your emotions and realize they may have had a situation, that means you have not checked yourself. You don't know who you are emotionally, which is why you're flying off the handle and your emotional expression is all out of pocket. Your child 30. You trying to tell me your child have to call you whenever you want them to call you? They 30. They 30. Come on, man. Well, Gabe, our family is different. No. Is it possible? Listen to me. Let me make you mad. Is it possible you set up rules to pacify your emotion? Is it possible that you trained your children to pacify your emotional expression? Is it possible that you built constructs into your relationship with your children? Because instead of facing your emotions, it was easier to tell people who were little how to respond and what to do, and then called it respect. And because you called it respect, so you have to call me on my birthday. You have to call me on Tuesday. You have to buy me a gift on Valentine's. I'm your mother. I'm your father. I better get a Father's Day gift. I brought you into this world. You don't even realize you may have very well built into their psyche, into their thinking, an emotional rule. My God, today. I'm trying not to preach, but you built into your children's life and thinking an emotional rule. It has no significance other than they don't want to cause you an emotion. I have talked to your children, meaning I have had conversations with people in their 40s, 50s, 30s, 20s, teens, 60s, and I have talked to them about these issues. Gabe, the reason why I live my life as a grown person because I don't want to disappoint my mama. Her feelings of disappointment drive who I am and what I do. I am more worried about disappointing her than trying to live a life that I have fashioned for myself. That emotion and those emotional rules are now literally dominating your grown child's life. And if you don't stop and get free and free your child, you are going to have your children always looking at you like, I want to go do something. I want to live like this, but I can't because dad said that if I don't respond to him like this, then I'm somehow either not his son or he's going to disown me. He always wants these kind of reactions. So if I don't give him these kind of reactions, and then you don't realize if he has a son, he passes that on to his son, and then you get mad at him for how he's talking to his son, and you don't even realize he got it from you. Boy, he's his own man, let him do. No, Dad, I'm telling him what to do. That's an emotional rule that you created in your family and you didn't even realize it. And now your son is doing it to your grandchildren and you all hot and mad because you want your grandchildren to be free and just do it. I have literally had, I got to get out of here. I have literally had conversations with people in their 60s and 70s who, because I'm a pastor, said to me, you know what, Gabe, I think I may have. Fill in the blank. Well, what you mean? What you mean? Yeah, I'm sitting here watching my children with their children, and I think I may have built into them XYZ. And all I could do is hurt with them. Because you can see the hurt. You can hear the hurt in their voice. Yeah, because my son was yelling at his daughter the other day, and I was like, boy, don't do that. And he looked at me, and then I realized I did that to him. I realized when I was raising him, I would be mad. I would come home from work and I would be mad. And so I would take it out on my kids. And now I see my son, he's doing that to his kids. Whew. I'm trying not to minister on this thing. I got to get off here. But hear me. I don't think emotions of themselves are negative. I don't think they are. But unfortunately, I think we were trained to not only see them in negative lights, because there are some who express happiness and there are others who will respond like, ooh, you always happy. Ooh, you get on my nerves. Why are you always happy? Why you always smiling? What's wrong with you? Maybe you've never heard it, but I've heard it. I've heard it. And they weren't joking. That person was taught that things like smiling and being upbeat about life, being inspirational and vibrant was negative. Woo! I'm trying to get out of here. Hear what I'm saying. That person grew up believing that that's all hypocrisy. Am I in your business yet? That person grew up believing that if somebody is smiling, they're up to no good. That person was taught to believe that if a person is chipper, that really they have some real issues and they just ain't had nobody uncover them yet. That's the kind of negativity that I'm talking about. Not the emotion, but the expression of frustration. But it's all wrong. We got to do a broadcast on that. We maybe do it next week. Hopefully this has been a help to you. I got to get out of here because I feel that thing. So share this out. Get this to people. Get this before your Facebook family and friends. Put this on your story. Get this out before people. So they can start digesting this. I have said this before. If you have a community of people who love you and trust you, I know we in COVID, but figure out how to bring 2 or 3 people together. Keep your social distancing. Put this broadcast on. Stop it, start it, discuss it, ask the question I asked, ask some other questions that come up. Use these instruments as opportunities to help yourself and others. I'm not doing these broadcasts because I just like running my mouth. I could be on the phone with somebody talking about God for hours. Trust me, I could be doing it right now. Pastor David want me to call it. I could be talking to him, and trust me, I won't get off the phone till 1 o'clock my time. He's in California. So I could be having a conversation with somebody and laughing and joking and talking and have a good time. I do these broadcasts because I believe that this information will get you thinking, and if you really want to, it'll help you grow. It'll help you grow. I don't like to do this necessarily on Thursdays, but I always feel that conviction. I am full-time in ministry. If you feel at any time like you want to be a contributor to that, for those who do it, I already thank you. I can't thank you enough. But if you ever feel like you want to just do something to benefit me, I get to do this. And as long as I tell people all the time, as long as God allows me to do this, I'm going to keep doing this. So if you like to give something, just contact me and I'll get the information to you. It's easy to do. That being said, enough of that. You guys have a great rest of your evening. Until next week, when we chat again. Have a good